Hello friends, James Stevenson back with another episode of Breakfast with Loki. If we can convince him to come out and eat his breakfast. Let me share the Loki's bed cam. He perked up. He was laying down in bed, but now he's up and licking his chops. Maybe I can convince him to eat some of his breakfast. As well as... Sorry about the loud noise. My table makes noises sometimes when I press against it. As well as, I will share my desktop with you and show you a chart that I made this morning. It doesn't even have a title over it because it doesn't need a title. This chart is showing Tesla's non-GAAP earnings per employee. How much has that number gone up by over the last 4 years? And how many employees has Tesla reported having on the payroll each of those years? And is there a correlation between those things? All right, so I get requests all the time from folks who see me online, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Patreon. Thank you to those of you who support me on Patreon. And I can't always remember who had the suggestion for a video, but this video was suggested by a viewer who said, "Hey James, do you have any charts on profit per employee and how that's been changing over time?" And I had to admit to myself I didn't have one of those charts. Well, now I do. Just this morning I added a new section to the detailed model tab of my forecast spreadsheet. This was previously unoccupied space. I left some blank rows between there and the per diluted share section of my model. So I just went and found the data and added it to my forecast model this morning. So in 2022, Tesla reported ending the year with 127,855 employees. Tesla doesn't give it to us every quarter. They only give it to us once a year. So I decided to just hold to whatever the most recently reported number is throughout the year until the end of the year that Tesla gives us the number for, because probably, Tesla didn't immediately jump from 99,000 to 127,000 at the end of Q1 2022, right? So it doesn't matter. What I've done with that is I've just created some annualized metrics here. So for example, the revenue per employee, I'm just looking at, hey, how much revenue was there? If I scroll up to my income statement, hey, how much revenue was there over the entire year in 2018? There was this much. So that looks like, a little over $20 billion worth of revenue. So I'm taking these numbers that are in billions, multiplying them by 1 billion, and then dividing them by the number of employees to figure out, hey, there was $439,000 of revenue per employee back in 2018. And then for future years, that number grows, 500,000. It actually dropped back some in 2020 because the employee count went up by so much, from 48,000 to 70,000. The revenue per employee fell some, back to 445,000. Then up to 541,000 in 2021 and 637,000 in 2022. So despite it being an all-time high for employees, it was also an all-time high for revenue per employee in the most recently ended year. So you get how that works. Then on the chart, which of these metrics have I charted? It's the one on row 1636 here, which hopefully you can see on your screen okay, ending in $110,585 non-GAAP earnings per employee in 2022. Using that number Tesla reported most recently, 127,855. So why did I choose an XY scatter plot as the kind of chart to put that data on? I could have put it on a bar chart or a line chart. I think it's because I'm interested in seeing over the most recent 4 years how many employees has Tesla had and what were the non-GAAP earnings per employee that year. It's a little bit of a chart crime to have number of employees on the x-axis and then a metric per employee on the other one because you're giving yourself some of the correlation for free, being that the denominator is the same here as the number being plotted on the x-axis. But this is a legit thing to chart. You can look at this and just be curious about, hey, okay, past 4 years, how many employees has Tesla had, and what was the non-GAAP earnings per employee? It's fine to look at that on a chart, as I did, and check it out. Very steady progress. Like, if you were to do this for Ford or GM or Toyota, it would not look like this. If you started them both at zero at the origin, as I have here, there would be a much tighter clustering of points or observations because those companies don't hire way more people every year the way Tesla does. And those companies probably don't earn way more per employee every year than they did the year before. So there's no guarantee that there would even be a direction to the 4 observation points if you did this for other companies. But for Tesla, it's extremely clear that every year they're hiring a lot more people. So that's the run here. And then the rise is really significant. So I would say, just eyeballing this, Tesla's hiring about 25,000 more people every year. That's the run. And they're making, almost $40,000 worth of non-GAAP earnings per employee increase every year. So that's why on this formula up here, y equals mx plus b, we've got a coefficient of the x variable greater than 1. So this says our rise is more than our run. 1.3846 is telling you for every employee Tesla has hired over this span of time, they've increased the non-GAAP earnings per employee in total by $1.38. That's what that says. And that the y-intercept of this function is negative 64,057, meaning if there were 1 employee for Tesla, the non-GAAP earnings per employee would be a loss of $64,000 per employee, which is a nonsense number, but that's just telling you where this line would cross the y-axis if the y-axis went to negative 70,000 or whatever. But none of these dots are very far from the trend line. Like, they go right through 2020, touch 2019, and touch 2022. This one's only a little bit away from touching. And that's why the r-squared number is so high. R-squared is the coefficient of correlation. It tells you how related your variables are. So in this case, we fed it 2 variables, 1 independent variable, the number of Tesla employees, and 1 dependent variable, the non-GAAP earnings per employee. So that's what it's calculating for us, is the dependent variable, the y, in this case. You can estimate how much your non-GAAP earnings per employee are going to be if you know how many employees there are by just taking that number of employees, multiplying it by this coefficient, and then subtracting this y-intercept, and that'll give you an estimate for non-GAAP earnings per employee. Not saying that this function will hold forever, it's just the function that is the closest to matching this data set from these 4 years. And that's my video for today. I guess Loki decided he didn't want to eat his kibble, but that's okay, he'll eat it later on. So if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, why not go ahead and click the subscribe button over here and click the notification bell to be alerted whenever I post fresh content. Thank you to everyone who supports me either through Patreon or by joining my YouTube channel, as my executive producers, Kathy Kitchler and Halter Ferguson Financial did at the top tier, earning them executive producer credits. And thank yous at the end of every video, and I'll see you in the next one.